Can members of gaming communities and commenters around a single game become fully fledged developers for a game title, and do they make good developers? Well, what I wanted to talk about today is the fairly recent addition of Wrel to the Planetside 2 development team. Well, I mean, it's fairly recent in the length of Planetside 2's shelf life, and as an avid YouTube commentator and player of the game, how it could be one of the success stories in a game absorbing community members into the development environment and ultimately as employees. And also to announce that Wrel is now living in California, working at the Daybreak Studios directly. So he's walking the halls, rubbing elbows with the rest of the team in real life, which I think was a big frustration to him whilst he wasn't actually in California, struggling to communicate, I guess, with the development team actually based, moving in an office environment in California. So a mega congratulations to him, and I hope that it's a long-term thing that he stays in California. So some context to Planetside 2. Planetside 2 isn't a perfect game. The gameplay is solid, but gunplay and graphics are showing signs of dating back to 2012. Performance is a major problem that developers are always grappling with, but it does provide one of the best experiences that are in the gaming world, with just such big battles that you won't get elsewhere. The development has been rocky too. Higby, the creative director during the Sony Online Entertainment period, highlighted quite a few problems with getting funding from Sony, the sort of decisions during development to make things to monetize just to get developers through to the next month with pay. Basically, they were making features like the implant system to quickly get out each month so people would buy something quickly and then they'd have that revenue for the company just to pay the developers, which from the point of the company was obviously just trying to save everybody that they liked and cared about in the organization. But on the gaming development side, it made the game rocky, it had lots of bugs. A lot of the features were half-baked, and just like the implant system, it's a very messy feature. In general, the game does suffer from the curse of free-to-play in that it does have to sell microtransactions in-game, and that's the way that they make their revenue. And the bottom line is they need to make things to sell, even if they aren't in the same sort of pressured environment where every month there has to be this new feature or little thing that is the selling point that completely changes the game, but it's half-baked. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. We did have the big construction update, which you could say was one big way to try and get money, but in general, free-to-play does have that incentive behind it. Sure, it's a good free-to-play in that none of the actual gameplay elements are affected by its free-to-play nature, and they keep competition away from it. It's still fueled by the whales and the microtransactions from the store. And people are mixed on the development direction, even now when I'm going to talk well about it. Some people love the construction system that they brought out. If you didn't know, Planetside 2 implemented a player-based system. A lot of people say that it's just outside of the normal gameplay, it's not even really looked at, and some people love it. So there's two sides to the coin, and not everybody likes the way development's going. Even with some of the more new tweaks I'm going to talk about later, not everybody's on board with that, but that's just how development is. But there are definitely camps, especially with the construction system. So whilst not wanting to put all the praise onto Wrel's shoulders, in the past few months there's been a good ride for ironing out some of the game's big problems, and these big problems aren't necessarily big features, they're just tweaks and touches that have made the game such a better experience. And not just that, just for example, the big one is the new player experience, adding in new player buffs, giving players fully certed out characters for basically each class having one line of certs done. Basically it means that you are pretty much on a level playing field with all players once you start the game, which before you couldn't buy the XP in game, you had to earn it by grinding. But it just made it so awkward to join and be a new player, so you were struggling already, you were being killed where you didn't know where it was coming from, because it's quite a confusing game because there's so many players, so many places to get hit from, so much going on that you feel a bit overwhelmed. But to add to that, you had a character that wasn't developed. But now they've buffed a lot of the characters, and again, I can't say it was all Wrel, but there has been a trend since Wrel joined the game, giving quite a bit of direction to these tweaks, and just making things that have been irking the community for a long time right, I guess. If you don't already follow him on Twitter and you want to see the Planetside 2 development, he also is putting out pretty much daily changes and things that he's doing at the moment, and a few of these also fit into that niche of being things that the community have always moaned about. One is the Zoe on the Max, and if you don't know what the Zoe is, basically the Max units are like indoor tanks, but they had this Zoe module that was for the Vonu Sovereignty, the sort of sci-fi faction, and at the first when they released it, it was overpowered, so then they tried to nerf it, but that didn't work either. And then they've kind of just given up on it, and relatively few people use it now, I'd say close to none. I have seen it used though, but I have not touched it since it was overpowered. I mean, I was one of the offenders using it at the time, but I mean, everybody was. Another one is the Trap, which Yamix made a funny video about, but it has become a meme on just how bad that weapon is, and it's always needed tweaking, but it's just not something that they've got around to, and it's one of the community irks. And also making the Valkyries, which are the dropships, able to spawn on as a squad member. You don't need like a unit anymore. Before, you needed to grind out the unit, which I think was 1,000 certs, but they're giving away that for free now so that the vehicle itself is more useful. And also, it isn't just a cert sync. I think that's one of the big things that he's pushing for, is giving the case for reducing some of the items which are just a bit too much of a cert sync and only there for the sole reason of trying to get people to spend their XP on abilities and sort of things that should really be default, but because they want people to buy the weapons with real money, they don't want people to spend certs on weapons. I mean, people do criticize that, but again, it's got the curse of free to play. It needs to make money, and that's just the way they make it. The weapons, again, just to mention, just if you didn't know Planetside 2 very well, the weapons aren't really overpowered. You can't really buy something that's better than something else. I did a video basically on that. If you want to check it out, it does explain sort of the way that they have side grades rather than upgrades. Basically, I think that he's been able to strongly put forward the case of the community to the development team in a way that a commenter couldn't do, because they just don't have the access and the live chat to development teams. And from an outside point of view, a lot of people are happy with what is going on, and were happy when Wrel was first initiated as a developer, and also now that he's actually fully in-house. A lot of people do think it's a good thing, and has soothed a lot of the angst of the community, and these patches are all just little things that just help out, and every little does help. But, of course, he does have his own dissenters, and especially after Saltgate, but let's leave that alone. I mean, it does make sense that a social media presence around one game that is so popular, in Wrel's terms, he's got like 82,000 followers, and his videos all hit about 20,000 views each time, so having such a big following and a big proportion of what the Planetside 2 community is, in some way indicate that he would be a good voice to guide the path of the development that the company of the game would take. I mean, this isn't always the case, and especially it depends on what sort of content creator you are. Wrel has always focused on the sort of the nuances of game design, sort of balance and maintenance of community, and his motto is making gaming communities better, so that is always a good selling point. But maybe somebody like Dark Elf Druid might not make such a good addition to a development team for a game. I mean, it might be down to adding more dank memes, wub, and hit markers. I mean, I'm just kidding, Dark Elf. In Wrel's case, he's also quite good at bridging the community and communicating with the people. The development team of Planetside 2 is actually pretty good. They do post a lot on Reddit. If you didn't know that, you can look at the r/Planetside subreddit, and the developers often comment there. And you can actually see whenever one comments in the top bar of basically the title, it'll say in brackets dev if a dev has responded to that post, but that's not always true. Sometimes you look in and the dev will have said lol, and then you'll be like, well, that was great. I'm glad I just scrolled through 300 comments to see that lol. But again, in Wrel's case, he is quite a good conduit of getting things across to the community, and even in his videos it's sort of shifted, so he can't really make the same content he did before, criticizing the game, because he is the developer, he's making the game better, but his point of view now is on what the changes are, and what his thought process was, and things like that, or what the development team's thought process was, and what they hope to achieve. And RadarX is split between two games, being the community manager of both, and they're both quite different games with quite different communities as well, so it's always nice to have another voice that really can reach out to the community, and that's another, I guess, bonus of people that are in the sphere of commentary. Anyway, I know this has been a bit of a ramble, but I just thought it was an interesting topic, and the bottom line is I did want to announce that Wrel was actually an in-house developer now, because I just wanted to congratulate him, and also it's actually quite awesome that that has happened for him, and it's a big thing, and basically he's been able to make a life out of it, which especially to YouTubers, when the ad revenue is so low, is quite a nice feat. So he's obviously one of the idols of other content creators moving forward. It's one avenue to go through, I guess. And no, this video hasn't been a career pitch, it was just an interesting topic, and hey, a good announcement, I thought. I know it was a bit ranty, but maybe you can forgive that. What does everyone else think? Maybe you aren't one of the ones that thinks this is all a good move. Do you think other commenters, or maybe even in different games, would make good developers or additions to teams of games that you like? Is there anyone out there? Or do you think that Wrel is a special case because he's a special man? Anyway, be sure to let me know in the comments section below. If you thought this video was devilicious, give it a like. If you thought it was completely dev, don't give it a dislike. And that was a terrible pun, so sorry about that. Anyway, serious face back on. Hit that subscribe button to catch up with more Joshino content. And thank you all very much for watching. Until next time, Joshino.